Hello, thank you so much for being here. I'm so happy to have you. In today's Pick a Card reading, we are going to be doing a check-in with yourself. So we are going to be taking a look at your current energy and different aspects of yourself, including mind, body, heart, and soul, and just looking for any messages of guidance, allow you to do some self-reflection and make any adjustments that, might be helpful for you. So we have 3 groups that you can choose from today, each with a different tarot deck, and I've pulled a court card from each deck to act as a signifier card. So this is the traditional way of grounding readings, tarot readings. A card would be pulled from the deck before the reading began in order to represent the seeker or querent, in this case you, whoever the reading was about, and that was what grounded the reading. So for group number 1, we are using the Vindur Deck, and the card that I pulled is the Queen of Swords. For group number 2, we have the King of Coins, and this is the Storyteller's Tarot. And for group number 3, we have the Page of Pentacles, and this deck, I do not know how to pronounce it, but it is either Manshin or more likely Manshin, the Manshin Tarot, maybe? I'm not sure. Forgive me for my poor pronunciation of that. But take a moment to figure out which card you are more drawn to. If you need to pause the video, do so, and then I will see you in your reading. Hello, group number 1. If you chose the Queen of Swords from the Vindur deck, this is going to be your reading. Just going to put your signifier card there. And then I want to start by taking a look at some oracle cards to get a sense of your overall energy at this time. And you can use this as an energy check to make sure that you selected the correct group for you. To start off with the Song of the Soul Oracle, the first card we have is Outro Wings. I made a decision to have unconditional trust. And the keyword is trust. We got 2 of these cards. The first one we have Fire Dog, Redefine Your Boundaries. It's number 23. We have number 43, Fire Horse, Effortless Vitality. We have the color Magenta. It's number 5. And it says connect to your deepest inner knowing. We have number 45, Beyond the Ordinary. And we have number 42, Unikite, Live in the Present, and it's connected to the heart chakra. So this overall energy, I feel like I can interpret it either as where you are currently or the energy you need to be moving into or that you are moving into. But overall, there's a lot going on in unseen ways, maybe is the best way to put that. It's like there's a lot of things you don't know what's going on, but not in the sense of like you being oblivious, but in the sense of like this song talks about beyond the ordinary. It talks about things that are unseen. So this, it's like shifting energy, the universe, aligning things, things that cannot be seen. But with that being said, I'm not sure, it could be that you are trying really hard to manifest something or to reach a certain goal, and you're working, I feel like you're working very hard right now. But at the same time, you're not seeing exactly where that's taking you. So it's like with this card of trust, I made a decision to have unconditional trust as well as connect to your deepest inner knowing. It's like you're trying to just trust what you're feeling. You're trying to trust that even though you can't see where things are headed or see how things are working out, that they are working out in your favor. But for what I was talking about earlier about how there's a couple different ways that I can interpret this energy, for some of you, you could be really struggling to be in the present moment. It could be that you are getting too caught up in the what is going to happen. Maybe you want, like this card talks about wanting to know things that like you cannot know yet or ever. Like there are some things that you're just not supposed to know until they happen, but also in the sense of like things are still shifting, things are still falling into place. So you can't know what's going to happen because the future hasn't been determined yet. It isn't set in stone. Things shift and change. So the future, the potential of the future is also always shifting as well. But it could be that you are preoccupied with that, of worrying and wondering what's going to happen. Or you could also, I'm getting for less of you, but for some of you, it could also be that you are getting hung up on the past in some way. So there is a need to find balance and to stay more focused in the present moment. Some of you, like I said, for some of you, this is energy that you need to be moving into, that the situation is calling for. For some of you, you might be there. You might already be like trying your best to stay focused in the present, to maintain your sense of trust and to have that sense of balance where it's not like you're not planning for the future at all. It's not that you're not ever doing that, but you're not getting so caught up in that your present moment is being neglected. Because if you're so caught up about the future and what's going to happen, that's taking time away from you working towards the future you want, right? It's interesting that you got 2 fire cards, and I am not super well versed on the Chinese zodiac, but I do know that like this energy here, talking about effortless vitality, is also like a bit of what this card talks about with the Unikite. This card, let's just start here. I always get ahead of myself, but this card is talking about being motivated, of having like being energized and inspired by your inner fire, by your joy. And this card is also, it also talks about focusing on what brings you joy, being in the present moment and focusing on those aspects in order to bring more balance and to, ground you in the present moment. So both of these cards have like sort of similar messages. But also with this card, because it is yang energy, because it is fire, there can be, on the one hand, it is a very cheerful, active energy, but there can also be, with that energy, there can be a sort of restlessness. And that might have something to do with struggling to stay present in the moment and wanting to like anxious to find out what's going to happen in the future. But it can also do with like there's a risk of becoming too imbalanced, of either burning yourself out or just like I feel like this card talks about, like if you have excess energy, like if you have so much energy that you're like getting restless and anxiousness and stuff, it's like do some physical activity, go for a walk or a jog or, something like that. Try to find that balance. Redefine your boundaries. There's so many different ways that this can apply. But it's just asking, either this is something that you have been doing, like I said, like you could be in this energy already, or this could be energy that you're moving into. But this card talks about a need to reassess your boundaries, and that can go both ways. It could be that you are doing too much, that you are burning yourself out, and that you're, allowing people to I don't always want to say like take advantage of you, because I don't think like that sounds malicious. And I think a lot of the time when people ask us for help or they rely on us, they're not realizing to the extent that they're doing it. But if you are, if you don't have boundaries set to be like, you know what, no, I'm tired, I need to rest, then you need to, set those boundaries. But you also don't want to have such rigid boundaries that you aren't ever getting out of your comfort zone, right? So there's a need to take a look at your boundaries, but also, so this could be like with other people, this could be with yourself, it could be with your schedule. It could be the case that if you have all of this energy, all of this, all of this fire energy, that you don't know where to put it. This can also talk about needing to create a routine, and not a rigid routine, but stay flexible. It's always about balance. The heart chakra as well, being the middle of the 7 chakras, it talks a lot about balance. And then with love and relationships, there's always like the idea of give and take. But setting boundaries with yourself in order to create a sort of structure for this energy, somewhere to direct it, is, I think, what you need in this moment. So it could also be that you're like, when you think about the future, you get so excited about it that you get all this extra energy, but you need to like find a way to ground it in the present moment and like put it to good use. It's really interesting, this beyond the ordinary card to me, because it's really feeling like whatever this is, like it has like a really great significance on like a spiritual level. And I think that, it could literally be like whatever it is that you're trying to work towards, or wherever you're trying to go, like direct wherever you're trying to like direct your path towards. I guess it doesn't necessarily, anything is spiritual, right? Like it doesn't have to be like your greatest soul calling, but whatever this current energy, it's really helping you to connect to your inner wisdom, to connect to what is unseen, and to sort of create that sense of trust of, even when you can't see what's going on, you can still sense with like an inner knowing, with a sense of trust that like things are working out in your favor, if that makes sense. Or maybe that just seems incredibly obvious, but I'm not sure that I expressed well what I was trying to get at. But let's see, is there anything else from this general energy that I have not addressed? Just to summarize, it's like I was talking about, finding the balance, to stay in the present. And did I talk about following what brings you joy? Both of these cards, I think I did, but sorry if I'm being redundant. But focusing on what is inspiring to you. If it gives you a burst of energy, then you're on the right track. You are following something. Like what is bringing you inner joy is what will give you effortless vitality. When you don't want to do something, just the thought of it makes you feel tired, right? You feel drained. You're like, oh, I don't want to do that, right? So focus on what is bringing you joy, even if that's like spending time with loved ones and whatnot, but also in the sense of like what you're pursuing, so that you can stay in the present, set some boundaries, and try to ground that energy into like some kind of useful structure, but don't get so rigid with it that you aren't open to, to being adaptable to, to the flow of things. All right. So if that sounds like energy you are in or are trying to move towards, let's go ahead and get into the tarot now. And we'll take a look at the current energy, the current energy of your mind, body, heart, and soul. And then we'll end with just additional guidance for you. Okay, so to start off, I think it works better when I just pull all the cards and then we can talk. And that way, anyone who doesn't like watching the shuffling can skip ahead. So we will start by getting a card to represent your mind, your current mental state. What is the current mental state? So let's get a card for body. What is going on physically? Ooh, that's a lot. I'm going to keep shuffling. Okay, I'm going to take them both because they came out. But we have the Tower and the Wheel of Fortune. Okay, now let's get a card for your heart. What is your current emotional state? We have the World and the Nine of Wands. Okay, a card for your soul. What is going on spiritually? Oh. No, I'm not taking 4 cards, sorry. I'm going to keep going. What is going on spiritually on a soul level? Okay, 2. I will take 2. We have the 7 of Swords in reverse and the Shadow. So I need to move these. And finally, any additional guidance that you might need to hear. Again, with the 4 cards, I guess there's lots. I mean, it wouldn't have been a bad idea if so many cards didn't come out, if I got advice for each one, but I feel like the advice is sort of built into the cards already anyway. So let's see. Let's get a card of additional guidance. We have the 7 of Cups. It kind of came out sideways. I feel like it was more reversed, but we can take a look at it in both contexts. Okay, so to start out with your mental state, we have the Moon in reverse. So the Moon a lot of times represents uncertainty. It can represent our fears and anxieties that we might have. And I do feel like personally, people obviously interpret the cards differently, but I do usually get the more negative sense of the meaning of this card when it is in the reverse. Sometimes I will get, when the Moon is reversed, sometimes I get that you are like moving out of, you know, the confusion or lack of clarity, the uncertainty, and you're seeing things more clearly. And honestly, either one can apply to you. I feel like depending on whether this was you were living this energy of being in the present and reassessing your boundaries and working on establishing a balance and a sense of trust and all of that good stuff, then I would interpret this card as being that, in spite of maybe the future being uncertain, that you have a sense of clarity that you are on the right path because you have this inner knowing. For others of you, if you haven't quite moved into that energy yet and you're still working on it, then your mind could be preoccupied with worries about the future, with the anxiety of not knowing what's going to happen. I feel like, let's see. I also feel like there could be a message for some of you that you have not been working on integrating aspects of your unconscious mind. in the sense of shadow work, which we literally have the shadow. So I feel like maybe we'll save that conversation till we get to the spiritual level. But it could be that like the mental state is one of like your consciousness is not in tune yet with unconscious elements. Like you haven't integrated them into your consciousness yet. But we'll get there when we get to the spiritual side of things. So moving on to body, the physical, we have the Tower and the Wheel of Fortune. So, I mean, wow. It could be, there's so many different things that I feel like this could apply to, but like the most obvious thing that I'm getting is like if you had a tower moment, like if you literally, if you, something happened health wise or like an accident, like you could have been through something that was, really physically trying. How do I describe it? Like something that required a lot of recovery. But with the Wheel of Fortune, I would get that is like shifting. It could be that you were suffering from some health problems and you are now in the state of resolving them, healing from them. But there could also be a message here. I feel like about body image. And even though like this is the physical, obviously different aspects of the self aren't completely separate, right? So it could be that you're shattering illusions about like your body image. Like if you ever suffered with like feeling self-conscious about your appearance or not feeling very attractive or like things like that. Like the Tower can also talk about shattering illusions. So even though that would be like moving into either mental or emotional, aspects of it, if we're talking about body image, I do feel like just because I associate this song so closely with the shattering of illusions, that like if you did, struggle with any of those things, like you were working on shifting those, which is really positive and great. But yeah, so this could also have to do with shifting unhealthy habits, whatever that might be, in terms of your diet, in terms of exercise or physical activity, things that could potentially lead to some serious health consequences down the line. You could be shifting those things. But any way that I look at this, I'm getting a really positive, like the Tower is usually a pretty scary card, but like being directly followed by the Wheel of Fortune, like these cards coming out together, I'm taking it in a really positive sense of like a shift away from what was unhealthy, what was dangerous, what could have led to, really negative consequences. Or you may have experienced, like I said, maybe you've experienced something that you had to spend some time recovering from, but you are in that recovery phase. Like things are shifting so you can regain your health and get back on track. So that feels pretty positive. There could also be this sense, since this card is related to the root chakra and the sense of trust, and even with like connecting to your inner knowing, sometimes like the important thing, definitely living in the present, the Unakite card. This Unakite is both a balancing and a grounding stone. So this could also have to do with like having felt very unstable, having felt very, thrown off, like you lost your footing or something. And this card is indicating like a shift away from that instability, so that like this could literally be like you are working on becoming more grounded. So also positive. Now, as far as the heart chakra goes, or not the chakra, that card says heart chakra, but as far as the heart goes, the emotional aspect of self, I feel like this is a really interesting combination of cards. On the one hand, my initial reaction before I saw the second card is like, oh, you are actually emotionally fulfilled. You feel complete. You don't lack that the insecurity of, like sometimes people will look to their partners in order to feel complete within themselves, or like just anything external in order to feel complete. But I feel like on the one hand, the world card coming up, it's like you do feel complete. You are in touch with yourself. You are, like have a solid sense of who you are, and you are emotionally fulfilled. You're following, the things that bring you joy. But at the same time, we have the 9 of Wands. So this could mean that, like very simply, it could mean that you've just been through a lot. You've had a lot of emotional upheaval throughout your life, and you've been like, you have battle scars on your heart, if that makes sense. But you suffered a lot of emotional wounds throughout your life, is what I'm getting from this card. And on the one hand, like this card isn't necessarily negative. Like it could just be like, you are a veteran, like you've been there, the drill, and that is why likely that you feel fulfilled, because I feel like I just mentioned this in the last pick a card reading I did. But they've done studies where it's shown that people who experience like a larger variety of highs and lows actually feel a greater sense of emotional fulfillment than people who are just like kind of coasting through life and everything's just like, okay, like sometimes you need the extreme lows so that you can appreciate the highs and like really, like live life. I mean, there could also be an aspect of maybe people who just have like everything's just okay, that maybe they've also experienced things in the past that have caused them to numb themselves emotionally and therefore are incapable of appreciating or enjoying like the high moments in their life. I mean, so I guess that study, I didn't read the study myself, so I don't know if they addressed that aspect of it as well. But anyway, that was a bit of a tangent. But for some of you, it's like because of what you've been through, because of the healing that you have done, you now feel complete within yourself. For some of you, there might be a message, especially with this redefine your boundaries card. It could be that you feel secure within yourself. You could feel, emotionally fulfilled overall, but at the same time, because of your past experiences, you could be isolating yourself. You could have walls up that are preventing you from connecting with other individuals on a deeper level. And so that's definitely where this card would be coming in to encourage you to reassess those boundaries. Like don't keep up such rigid boundaries. You need to have a little bit of flexibility, and boundaries need to be reassessed and adjusted. And it could be the case that you need to loosen up a little and let other people in. All right. So for what's going on a spiritual level, we have the 7 of Swords in the reverse and the Shadow. So for most of you, I'm getting like a really positive read from this. The Shadow is the devil. And it's in this deck, it is called the Shadow, but it is traditionally the card of the devil. And but the fact that it came out with the Seven of Swords, this card is upright. Like, the individual is sneaky. They're being secretive. They're maybe not acting with a lot of integrity, right? But when it's reversed, I feel like a lot of times I feel like it's like the secret is out. Like, it there's no longer this hiding or this obscuring the truth. And so with the shadow, this card is obviously all the more so related to shadow work than even other decks usually. But I feel like for a large number of you, this means that you're looking at your shadow, right? Like, you're not trying to hide from yourself. You aren't trying to avoid looking at what is unconscious. And that I feel like that, like, it makes a lot of sense that I wasn't sure which way to interpret this card, because I think that there is like a sort of split. I think that there are two energies, like, I mean, it is a collective reading, so there's always going to be a few different ways to interpret things. But I would say that some of you have definitely been doing this. And I guess, like, honestly, even if you do, you could identify with both interpretations. Like, what we were talking about with the moon is, being comfortable with the uncertainty, with the future being uncertain, being comfortable going into the unknown, because you are, even if you can't like see it clearly, you are sensing, you're understanding the situation with clarity. As opposed to some people being anxious and full of fear when thinking about the unknown. But I mean, I don't know about you, but I can go through all of those, different elements in a short span of time. Like, I can feel certain one moment and feel secure and reassured. And then, like, a little while later, I'm going to struggle with what I felt completely comfortable with a moment ago. I mean, I think that that's a very human thing, like, our emotions shift and change all the time. So, for some of you, you're definitely doing the work. You're doing the shadow work. You are at least opening yourself up to, looking at the aspects of self that are hard to look at, and embracing them, and, bringing them into consciousness to heal them. For others of you, like, this is what is needed. Like, there needs to be more attention paid to what's going on in your unconscious mind, because those things are what cause people to like act compulsively. This is also a card about addiction. So like, there could be like resolving issues with your shadow. I almost said ego. You need to do both. Always, everyone. But resolving issues with your shadow, healing those aspects of yourself that you have rejected, really helps with this stuff, with making those positive changes. So if anyone here didn't, especially if you didn't resonate with this, aspects of health, of working to improve your health, like, there could be the message that, like, both of these need to shift in order to get away from, like, the aspects of your habits and behaviors, however you're living your life, to avoid, having a health crisis of some kind. That sounds really extreme, but yeah, so there could just be an urge, like, you are being urged to work on shadow work, and if you don't know what that means, I mean, you can look it up online, but I feel like everyone has like a sort of different take on what shadow work actually means. All I mean by it is to take a look at what's not visible, and what this card can also talk about, not just what is unseen, but it can also talk about things that cannot be understood logically or rationally, things that just don't seem to make sense, but there's like, it makes sense in its own way. I don't know how else to describe that. But what I'm talking about with shadow work is really just being open to take a good look at yourself, to not get so stuck in your head that you are ignoring what's going on unconsciously. Being in tune and in alignment with your higher self, your inner knowing, can help guide you to heal aspects of your shadow. And even just being open, putting those boundaries down, I mean, that is a potential for those of you who do have boundaries up. There could also be boundaries within your own heart of not wanting to feel all of your emotions. Not just boundaries with other people, but boundaries of what you allow yourself to feel. Like if you are repressing any negative emotions because they're unpleasant, like it's going to come out in one way or another. And the longer you try to ignore it, the more power it has over your life, the more it is going to influence, your behavior, and to affect your relationships, etc. But yeah, so if you're not sure about what shadow work means, if you aren't sure where to begin, just set the intention to be open to seeing all aspects of yourself, to overcome that fear of taking a good look at yourself, so that you can heal and integrate the aspects of yourself that you think are undesirable, or are unlovable in some way, because that is a distortion of the truth. So just try to be open to whatever comes up, and go from there. To end us off, the card for guidance that we got, the Seven of Cups in reverse-ish, because it kind of came out like this. But I felt like it was just ever so slightly tilted this way. So this is how I'm going to interpret it. And I feel like it's always easiest when talking about cards in reverse to talk about them upright first. The Seven of Cups is all about options, of having lots of options, of, needing to make a decision between them. But just as this in this card, it's a hand clearly reaching a specific cup. When I see this card in reversed, generally, I get the sense of, it's like, even if you have a lot of options, even if there's lots of different paths that you could take, it's like, what you want. You know what's right for you. And it is just staying true to that, to following that, and to not let any fears or uncertainties sway you from it. So for some of you, if you aren't sure, then like you may need to connect with yourself, spend some time in solitude. I feel like both of these, this one, I don't know. I feel like multiple of these cards, now that I'm thinking about it, they do suggest taking time to yourself, to ground yourself. I don't remember which one. I do believe this one does, for when all of this fire energy can cause like restlessness and anxiety. That's like when you need to like take a step back, take a little bit of time to yourself and ground yourself. But yeah, so for some of you, it's like, keep following your path. Just stick to what you're doing, because you're doing it right. Like you are headed in the right direction. For others of you, there could be a message if you don't feel certain in that sense. There is obviously this message of needing to ground yourself and connect to your inner wisdom. Like I was talking about earlier with these things, following what brings you joy is another way of doing that. Instead of getting too caught up in, oh, I should do this, or this isn't practical, or whatever, and making sure that you're setting time aside to do what brings you joy, that will help you connect to your inner self, to, your higher self. So I hope that made sense. I hope that was helpful. I want to end with just getting a few cards from this affirmation deck, the lyric cards. They aren't really affirmations. Some of them sound like them, but they're all lyrics that are in the first person, so they remind me of affirmations. But I just want to get a couple of these for any additional messages before we go. Even if I'm shaking and afraid, I walk on. Epiphany. So that even if the future is uncertain, even if entering into the unknown is scary, even if facing your shadow self terrifies you, just do it anyway. Because things always look scarier when they are shadowy, right? when you can't see what something, you see like a silhouette and you're like, oh, what is that? Once you shine a light on it, you're like, oh, that's so-and-so, or oh, that's the neighbor's dog, or oh, it's like you just need to shine a light on it and then it's not scary anymore. So that's like the irony of it. And that's why that card is, or not the card, the concept of the shadow is it's an appropriate name for it for multiple reasons. Speaking of shining a light, I got that superstar glow. So, maybe that's a message that, I mentioned in another reading that when I was talking about the shadow, I was talking about how like some people might have a judgment on being seen or being the center of attention. Like that's, like there's some value judgment of, like being arrogant or prideful or whatever. And it's like, you should, not try to attract attention to yourself and whatnot. But like, maybe there's a part of you that like feels that way, like that has that negative judgment, but there's actually something that would require you to be in the public eye, but like something that you have a gift for, like something that you can share with others that would be really beneficial to them. So just side note, since we were talking about the shadow, that card seems to relate to it. So let's just try to get one more of these. We have, even if I fall, am wounded or in pain, I keep running endlessly towards my dream. Young forever. So yeah, keep moving forward. You are on the right path. So just maintain that sense of trust and follow what brings you joy. So yeah, that is what I have for you. Thank you so much for watching, and leave me some feedback if you don't mind. If you have any to give, I always appreciate it, and I'll see you in my next one. Hello, group number 2. If you chose the King of Coins from the Storyteller's Tarot, then this is going to be your reading. I'm going to go ahead and put your signifier card over here. And to start out, before we get into the particulars of your current energy, I'm going to take a look at these oracle cards that I shuffled out in advance to get a more general sense of your energy, and also so that you can use it as an energy check to make sure that, this is the group for you. So to start off with the Song of the Soul Oracle, we have C, where there is hope, there is always hardship, and the key word is transcendence. We have number 42, Wood Snake, enjoy the waiting game. We have the color bronze, number 14, and the message is strengthen your body. We have number 4, great and full. Number 6, it is what it is. And last we have number 22, kunzite. Keyword is children, and it's associated with both the third eye and the heart chakras. So the overall energy that I'm getting for this group is feeling a bit difficult. It feels like you might be struggling at this time, or that you are just simply unsatisfied with the way your life is at this time. I always kind of get, for the general energy, like 2 possibilities of either energy that you are currently in or energy that you are moving into moving towards. I tried to say both at the same time, as I tend to do. Or it's just like the energy that like the situation is calling for. It's interesting because I was curious, the Storyteller's Tarot relates each card to, well, a story. But for the King of Coins, the guidebook, I checked it because I was curious. It was talking about dragons, in like how there's a myth or just a tale about how certain fish carp, I believe is what the guidebook said specifically. And other accounts I've heard of this before too. Other accounts I heard that it was a salmon, but it's talking about how they turn into a dragon if they are able to reach the dragon's gate. But this gate is upstream at the top of a waterfall, like on a mountain peak. So it's like requires a lot of determination to travel upstream, right? But that's actually really fitting for the energy I'm getting here. It's like the feeling that you are moving upstream, like you are not seeing the progress, you are just struggling to maintain forward movement. And especially with this, it's like where there is hope, there is always hardship. It feels like you are hoping to move your life in a certain direction, or you're hoping to manifest something or to achieve some goal in your life, or just like find a place, a sort of balance in your life where you feel satisfied, where you feel comfortable and fulfilled. So for some of you, you could be struggling. Like I said, you could currently feel like you are really struggling and that you are feeling impatient and having a hard time accepting your situation. For others of you, I feel like you have already started to move into this energy where even though you're not happy with where your life is right now, you've been able to move into a place of greater acceptance and just being trusting that like it's a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. And so by releasing, you know, your attachment to the outcome and to just accept what it is, that's what this card talks about. It is what it is about accepting the way things are and trusting that everything is as it should be. Nothing is permanent. So if, you know, there are certain aspects in your life that are difficult right now, appreciate what those challenges are offering you, in a sense of, you know, strengthening your determination, strengthening your body, like literally. This card also talks about financial resources, like abundance. It also talks about trust and grounding and being able to, you know, like, and that's another sense of like being in your body. Strengthening your body is also helping you ground yourself so that you're not overwhelmed with emotions or anxious thoughts and that sort of thing. But it's important to, if you're not already there, it's important to learn how to accept things as they are so that you can see what this time is offering you. Enjoy the waiting game, the wood snake. This card, like if you think about a snake, they can be very still, very and when they're going to hunt something, they wait for the right moment. They have an extraordinary amount of patience. So they bide their time. And so for you, this could mean either increasing your knowledge, it could be strengthening wherever you need to, strengthen your resolve, strengthen your physical body, strengthen your sense of grounding, and to learn how to accept and trust life, But it is also, I feel like, helpful to also remember that some things, when either in terms of change or growth, some things are very gradual, right? Some things take time, like a tree to grow, takes a long time for, the roots to, I'm also thinking, this is making me think of a different oracle deck all of a sudden, but bamboo. There's I think it's Alana Fairchild, has a card about like bamboo, in the sense, well, she has multiple actually, now that I'm thinking about it, but for the one I'm thinking of, it's talking about how there's a certain kind of bamboo, or maybe it's bamboo in general, I'm not sure, but for the first 5 years, it looks like nothing is happening. It does not look like there's a lot of like visible growth. But what's happening is that the roots are growing deeper and deeper into the ground. And then after those 5 years, because there's such a strong foundation, because the bamboo its roots are so strong within the ground, so deep, that the bamboo just like shoots up. But that's actually also what this card talks about. It's like the snake, it might have to wait a while before the perfect moment, but then it's super quick. It grabs its prey, and sometimes I feel like that's for long periods of time where you feel like you've been needing to be really patient for and your patience is wearing because of how long it has been without seeing progress, without seeing any signs of growth. A lot of times it's very sudden change that results from that, like everything happens all at once. So hopefully that perspective on it can help you have a bit more patience. But otherwise, these cards here, I feel like are giving advice on ways to not feel so impatient. Because when you're in the energy of waiting, it's difficult to remain patient. But if you accept the situation, you can move into this energy of having gratitude. And the energy of gratitude, practicing gratitude, helps you appreciate the present moment and helps time not drag on so long. I might actually read this. I didn't read for group number 1, but where's the guidebook? Here it is. I feel like, if you're trying to manifest something in particular, this card talks about that. And I feel like it might also talk about acceptance, which is what this card is talking about, but we'll find out. So, key concepts: the mindful practice of gratitude, knowing that you are enough, committing to your intentions, a sense of sufficiency, letting go of attachment to form. Before you can begin to understand the process of manifesting your desires, you need to practice deep gratitude and the willingness to share that with others. This is the true nature of prosperity. It's not about the things you accumulate at all. It's about how you feel. You're invited to surrender to an important truth. There is always enough for you. There is enough time to do the things you need and desire to do, enough opportunities to express your talents and connect to your purpose, and enough magic circulating through the invisible world into the visible. Begin your day immersed in gratitude for everything you have and everything you can't yet see, the unmanifest, which begins with every breath you take. Know that you are enough and all your needs are being fulfilled, even if you doubt this in some moments. No one's success can make you feel small, and comparing yourself to others never works. Your life is brimming with unique potential. Focus on that. When you hold this feeling of gratitude, it acts as a magical open sesame to the floodgates of abundance. Couple that with a playful sense of detachment, and you'll find that miracles have an uncanny way of showing up in your life. Your intentions burst forth into reality with little effort on your part. There is hope, brimming with potentiality. It's okay that you don't always trust this. You are not alone in holding the candle high for transformation. Right now, contemplate how being in the energy of enough makes you feel. Eventually, you will have no attachment to what you do or do not manifest in the material world, what you do or do not have. Then, like magic, you have more than enough. What a fascinating universe we live in. So I felt like, since the energy sounds so rough, Colette usually has some pretty encouraging words in her guidebooks. But with that playful detachment, it's also was what I was going to get into with this card, Kunzite, with children. For some of you, if you have children in your life, maybe just there could just be a message to spend more time with them. Or maybe children are a big part of your life and you already do spend a lot of time with them. Like I said, this could be your current energy or energy that you, like the situation is calling you to move in towards. But for others of you, this card literally can just talk about connecting to your inner child. And along with this energy of, or like this focus on gratitude, it's talking about like having like the fascination and curiosity of like appreciating the simple things in life. So that's definitely something that could help, one, maintain your sense of hope, but also just to not feel the passage of time in such like a painfully slow way. I feel like with this card, I did talk about grounding a bit. Like I said, it could be literally strengthening your body or practicing grounding, doing something physical. But part of this is also to let go of any anxieties you have about the future or about how long things are taking, about not seeing signs of progress. So I feel like I've touched on everything overall. I did want to mention with this one though, I was going to say in acceptance for what is, like finding acceptance for your current reality, even if you aren't feeling fully satisfied with the way things are. There's also a message in this card about like this door. You might feel like a door was slammed shut in your face, like, you know, maybe something came to an end, or like a path towards, you know, a path that you thought would lead you towards your desires is closed, like you feel barred from entering. But this this card also talks about like there is a reason for everything. And so if a door has closed, it isn't that you can't manifest what you're trying to manifest, or you can't achieve the goals that you are trying to achieve, but that there's a different door. Like there's another door for you. Like trust that that is the case, and don't get so fixated on the door that is closed. Like appreciate what you have and you will be led to a new door. All right. So if you resonated with that, if that sounds like energy that you are currently in, I want to go ahead and start getting into the tarot now. And we'll get into the more specifics of what's going on the level of mind, body, heart, and soul, and then we'll just get one extra card for any additional guidance. I think I'm going to do what I did for the last group and shuffle out all of the cards before talking about each one, and that way anyone who doesn't like watching the shuffling can skip ahead. I will put a timestamp either in the video or down below, so that you can skip this part if you want to. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get a card for your mind, your mental state at this time. What is the mental state of group number 2? Okay. So we have the 6 of Hearts. Now, what is going on physically with the body? Group number 2, a card for the physical. We have death. I like that death card. I'm guessing that's Santa Muerte, but I don't know. I did not memorize all of the cards in this deck. So let's get a card for your heart. What is going on with you on an emotional level? We have the Hermit. On a spiritual level, no, that's 3. I'm not taking 3. If it was 2, I would think about it, but 3 is too many. So what is going on spiritually with group number 2? Okay, we have the Lovers in reverse. And then last, let's just get one card more for general guidance. "15, Vice, also known as the Devil." And I'm guessing that's Moby Dick. Okay, so to start off with mind, we have the 6 of Hearts in reverse. And I did just check, and this image is representing the Fountain of Youth. So I find that really interesting, since we got the card with children and the need to connect to your inner child, that maybe that's something that you struggle with. Maybe you are feeling really disconnected from your inner child. I feel like that tends towards more like it feels more emotional, but maybe you're just mentally, you are just more stuck in, I mean, I guess that makes sense, because if you're stuck in your head, then you're not in this, like, the joyful feeling of, being in touch with your inner child. But maybe you are just always really practically minded, always approach things from a rational perspective, and, in an effort to maintain like that focus, you view like other things that would connect you to your inner child as immature or just like a waste of time, something like that. But there is also a message here, because the 6 of Cups is it is so strongly tied to nostalgia and the past, that there could also be a preoccupation of your mind on the past. This could be either a positive or negative, in a positive or negative sense, as in like thinking about like, oh, the good old days, if only things were like that now. Or it could be in a negative sense of like, I feel like a lot of times when there's like negative attachments to the past, they have a lot to do with like, if only this wasn't the case, if only that person didn't do this to me, if only, like, and like a sense of regret, whether it's like personal in the sense of like, oh, I if only I hadn't done that, I wish I had done things differently and I would be in a better place today. Or it could be like in a sense of blaming and holding resentment towards others or towards your life experiences, that could be taking you away from the present moment, keeping you from, having gratitude and being able to accept your current circumstances. Like for some of you, I do feel like I'm getting this message that if you are struggling to accept the way things are now, what the deeper issue is that you haven't accepted what has happened in your past. And the thing is that when you have resentment for things that happened in your past or towards people in your past, it really does limit your ability to move forward. Because like, if you think about it in the sense of either a victim mentality or blaming other people, blaming external circumstances, whatever it is, instead of focusing on how you can respond and make positive changes in your life, you're giving your power away to those things or to those people. And so I feel like it's really important to recognize the power of acceptance in this. You know, there are always going to be things in your life that you can't control. You cannot control anyone but yourself. But what you can control is your reaction, how you respond. And if you can find acceptance for what happened, if you can find a way to forgive and have gratitude for those experiences, for the lessons and the wisdom that you were able to gain from them, that is how you take your power back. That is how you empower yourself to change your life, to strengthen, to ground yourself. So if you are struggling with, staying present in the moment, if you have like a lot of resentment towards things in your past, a lot of unhealed, it could be unhealed pain also, like try to reframe those things and have acceptance for them, because either way, you can't change the past. The past is done, but what you can change is the present moment and how you choose to view your past, and how you choose to empower yourself, the perspective you choose to take on the present moment. So as far as body goes, I feel like this is a really interesting card to come out, the Death card, which actually I'm going to check real quick if that is Santa Muerte. It is. I can't pronounce any of that. Our Lady of Holy Death is what it's translated as, a Mexican folk saint. So this is interesting. It says she is not only, like, her origins were the Grim Reaper, but she's also represents harvest, hope, and prosperity. And she acts as the patron saint for anyone who is in a dangerous career, to protect against accidents, gun violence, assaults, and violent deaths. So that's interesting. So the Death card does not represent like literal death. So don't be worried about that if you were. But it is a card of transformation. It is a card of endings. So this could be that you are ending certain habits. If you were in a state of, less than optimal health, like that is transforming. You are, there's one deck even uses a phoenix to represent the Death card. So there's a sense of regeneration. So if you were ill or suffered like a physical injury of some kind, like this is transforming, but it could also just be like you choosing to transform aspects of your health and into like something more positive. This could have to do with diet. This could have to do with exercise. It could be any number of things. It could be that you are like going to the gym and trying to work on like literally strengthening your body. But there's like some sort of transformation that is occurring, but it's sounding pretty positive to me, because in this context, I'm thinking primarily about like regeneration and renewal. But there could also, for some of you, there could also be a message of like relating it to this card that like also talks about a sense of grounding and trust, it is making me think that for some of you, there might be a recommendation to work on grounding, whether that's through meditation, whether that's through physical activity, but that that in doing so, in being more physical, even if you're just like taking a walk or something like a little more relaxing, instead of like doing an intense workout at the gym or something, focusing on the physical more will transform more than just your physical body. It will help you transform your life in general, but you on a spiritual level. But really on all levels, because like I was talking about it in another video. I feel like there's like a lot of recurring themes with this collective, but I was talking about how like emotional trauma, healing emotional trauma, it's actually recommended to, like, when working through difficult emotions, that like taking a walk actually is really helpful for that. It's not only grounds you by doing something physical, but the rhythm, the pace of walking, as well as like what that does to your heart rate, it helps keep you feeling stable, keep you feeling like able to process those difficult things. So it can also help clear your head. It can help get you out of your head if you're stuck thinking about, like, especially if you're stuck thinking about the past or like have a lot of worries or anxieties. Physical activity can help transform those things. But then also grounding is definitely like helps you stay in alignment, like on a spiritual level. So that could be a message, like for some of you, if you don't do much physical, like there could be a benefit to doing something, even if it's just something small to start. As far as the heart goes, we have the Hermit. And I feel like for some of you, there's going to be different interpretations for everyone, right? But in one sense, this is giving me a sense that you are very reflective on, you've been very reflective on your emotions. Maybe you've been working through your emotions, which is probably what would help you if you feel like you're already in the energy of acceptance as opposed to needing to move towards it. Like it could be the case that you've been spending time in solitude, giving yourself space, some time alone to work through things emotionally. But for others of you, I'm getting the sense that some of you could also be closing yourself off from others. You could be sort of isolating yourself instead of like allowing yourself to connect on a deeper level with people. And I would say that is definitely a possibility for if you are stuck on things from the past, and you're struggling to find forgiveness or acceptance for things that you've been through or what people have done to you. It makes sense that you might, as a way to protect yourself, be closing yourself off from others, closing your heart space off from others. So I can see that going in two ways. For those of you, for anyone really, I think that reflecting and working through your emotions is always going to be a positive thing. It could be that is something that is needed at this time, is to take time to yourself to work through those emotions. And that's not a contradiction, honestly, for any individual that also is struggling to open themselves up to others, who has closed themselves off. Like you might need to work through your emotions. You might need to heal experiences from your past in order to do that. But if you're just closing yourself off without using it in a positive way of healing and giving yourself time for that, then it's usually a pretty unhealthy thing to do, to isolate yourself entirely. So on the one hand, give yourself the time you need to work through your emotions, to let yourself feel your feelings, to accept your feelings so that you can process them and release them, in order to open your heart space to others. And this card of connecting to your inner child, like, it could be that like the emotional wounds that need healed are actually go back that far. Like maybe your inner child needs some healing. For others of you, I'm getting the sense that it's just like to connect to the things that bring you joy and appreciating simple things in life. But for others of you, you may have inner child healing that needs to be done, so that you can open yourself up more fully. Okay, moving on to the soul. We have the Lovers in reverse, which this is indicating to me that there is either, like on the one hand, the Lovers upright indicates choice, but on the other hand, so that it could be that you are avoiding making some choice. But on the other hand, what I was going to say is that like this could also just indicate like a sort of imbalance on a spiritual level. If you resonated at all with what I was talking about being hung up on the past and having resentments, I feel like this is affecting your spiritual energy as well, the state of your soul, and is causing some imbalance. This could also be that like it's really tying. It's making me think of this card a lot with like the potential that maybe you are blaming others for things that happened in the past, as being the root cause of your current circumstances that you're unsatisfied with. And so I really feel like there needs to be a greater, well, it's getting kind of redundant, but that there needs to be a greater level of acceptance so that you can restore that balance. What I was talking about earlier as well with the choice, and therefore being in reverse, it could be like avoiding that choice. I'm also getting that like if you are blaming circumstances or what other people have done to you, your past experiences, whatever it is, in a way you are, in the same sense that you are giving away your personal power by not seeing what is in your power, that you could have changed or you could have responded differently, or even in this current moment, like you don't have to allow the past to prevent you from from achieving what you want to achieve or living the life you want to live. But it's like, instead of making the choice, you are like acting like you don't even have a choice. Like there's nothing in your power that you can do to improve your situation, that it's all just, you're just passively living life, letting life happen to you instead of creating the life you want and taking responsibility for the things that you can, influence, for the things that you can do. I got distracted because it was suddenly reminding me of this card, which is interesting how these cards are lining up, because I'm pretty sure it's this card. She actually quotes the Serenity Prayer. I flipped right to it. After saying that I like the prayer, I couldn't even quote it. But God grant me the serenity, right? It's the Serenity Prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I feel like that's like very appropriate. It's like you're, for some of you, I feel like you are like refusing to even see the fact that you have choices. You have things that you can do. And like there might be this element of having to wait of, needing patience for the right moment. But during that time, there are things that you can do to help influence the outcome towards a better one. But for others of you, I feel like there's just if you didn't resonate with that, that's totally fine. It could just be that there is some imbalance on a spiritual level. And so, working on grounding exercises or activities could be a way to remedy that, of what I was saying with this death card, of transforming the physical in order to, set a strong foundation to be grounded, so that the other aspects, including the spiritual, can balance and transform. So moving on to our card of guidance with Moby Dick, we have the name of this card is Vice. It is usually represented as the devil. And the last group got this as well in a different, where was it? I'm not even sure which one it was in. But it was in spiritual, which makes sense. But in that deck, it is called the Shadow. And so the message of guidance I'm getting from this is that maybe shadow work is necessary. This card, Vice, I was about to say, it talks about like bad habits and things and addictions, but like the fact that it's literally called Vice, I think already explains that aspect of the card. But this doesn't have to necessarily be chemical addictions. It doesn't have to be, there's so many different forms that it can take, but it can literally just be bad habits of, say, focusing on the past instead of being present in the moment. Or it could be a bad habit of, not wanting to work through your emotions, or not wanting to open up to other people, of isolating yourself. Like, these are all sorts of things that can fall into the category of like addiction or bad habits. But with the need for shadow work, working through unconscious aspects, whether it's painful memories from the past, or negative experiences that you've had, of recognizing where you're blaming other people instead of taking responsibility for yourself. And that's not to say like other people in your life aren't at fault. It's not to say that if you were mistreated in the past, like that was your fault and that you deserved it. Absolutely not. That's not what I'm trying to say here. But once you can recognize the role that you played, you can learn lessons from your past so that you can make better decisions, so that you can avoid putting yourself in a position where others can harm you. Like, you don't have to cut yourself off from other people and keep your heart closed. You don't need to keep barriers in order to prevent people from hurting you again. But, if someone has hurt you in the past, like maybe set boundaries with them. You don't need to, forgiving someone doesn't mean that you need to allow them the opportunity to hurt you again. Like, you can cut people from your life and still find forgiveness for them. But if you can accept things that have happened in the past and open your heart, ground yourself, whatnot, if you work on all these aspects that we've been talking about, you will be able to discern which situations are good and which ones are not for you. You will be able to discern where you need the boundaries and where you can relax them. Things like that. So there's definitely a message here to maybe look at any bad habits that you have and try to uncover what is beneath them. If you have closed yourself off from others, what was it that made you feel like you had to do that? Maybe there's a specific past experience. Maybe it has something to do with the way you were raised, and maybe like you just weren't encouraged to ever express your emotions. Maybe it's not like a certain event, but just a sort of conditioning that took place. But use those aspects as a starting point to dig deeper and see what needs healed, what needs to be brought into balance. So I hope that made sense. But yeah, I think that I'm going to leave it there and we'll just get a couple of these lyric cards to end us off. Hopefully give a bit of encouragement, because I feel like that reading was kind of a little harsh, perhaps. So the first one we have is the path. This is the path I chose. This is the destiny I created. With you, never walk alone. But I won't run away. I'm ready to let go. Which I feel like those are very fitting for, recognizing that, you never deserve to be mistreated. You never deserve to have, like harmful experiences, but to recognize that you do make choices and you can determine the course of your life. There are things in your power. You just have to be able to discern, like the serenity prayer, which things you can change, which things you just need to accept. And then also not running away, being ready to let go. This can have to do with the past. This can have to do with bad habits or bad negative thinking patterns. And also just being ready to face yourself, to let go of your ego, to work past your fear of, confronting your shadow. All of those things could be relevant. I think I want to get one card from this deck as well. Nope. Oh, I got 3. Okay. When winter is over, spring will come again. Answer, love myself. It's a little dangerous to go too fast. It's a little boring to go too slow. And that is exactly what this card is talking about. It's don't rush ahead, wait for the right moment, bide your time. Balance, also talking about balance a lot. And then, even though you've paused for now, don't hide in darkness, because light will shine again. Life goes on. Very fitting. So, if you're struggling to maintain that hope, and you're feeling impatient, things will start to move again. And things in your past, life will carry on. Something that happened in the past isn't preventing you from living a fulfilling life from here on out. So that is what I have for you, group number 2. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any feedback that you would like to leave me, I always appreciate it. And until next time. Hello, group number 3. If you chose the Page of Pentacles, then this is going to be your reading. Before I get into the specifics of what's going on with you, I want to start with some oracle cards that I pre-shuffled to get the general energy overall of you or your situation. And you can use this time to see if the message sounds like it resonates with you, to make sure that you chose the correct group. To start with the Song of the Soul Oracle, we have, could you turn off your cell phone? The lyric is, even though communication increased, between the two of us is only a noisy silence. And the key word is communication. Next, we have number 2, Wood Ox. Knowledge brings wisdom. We have Coral, the number 18. Says, allow flow and synchronicity into your life. We have number 27, A Grand Symphony. And we have number 28, Moonstone, moon cycles, and it's associated with the crown chakra. So with these cards, I am getting the impression that you may be working on something independently, or you may just be spending a lot of time to yourself right now. It could be the case that at this time you are feeling sort of, how should I say, set in your ways, whether this is you having a very rigid routine, or simply that you are feeling really sure about your perspective and not really considering other people's perspectives in the situation, or if it's like something you're working on, it could be that like you feel like you already have the knowledge you need, but the cards are kind of showing that there's like a bit of stubbornness, and you may even feel like you are meeting some kind of resistance, or that you just are not seeing the kind of progress that you want. And with this card, it is definitely talking about the need to open yourself up, to become more open-minded and curious in order to increase your knowledge of the situation. And this could be for something particular, like I said, if you're working on something, but this could also just be like a general energy of how you relate to others, how you interact with others, how you view life, just being very set in your own perspective instead of really considering, what other perspectives there might be. A grand symphony talks about a sort of balance between valuing your own unique qualities and, your own voice, your own perspective, but also understanding the importance, the beauty of other perspectives, of diverse perspectives, because this card talks about harmony, and a single note you can't have harmony with a single note, right? So each note is important, but it's having multiple notes in harmony with one another that creates the beautiful sound. With this card, it does seem like either there are particular people in your life that you were not communicating with, or that you were just keeping a lot to yourself, and you're not like really either sharing what you're doing or what you're going through, or you're not sharing your perspective, but also that you're not hearing other people's perspectives. You aren't seeking other opinions outside of your own. And along with like what I was talking about with like being perhaps in more of a rigid routine, there's a need to loosen up more and to allow yourself to become more flexible, to get into a sort of flow, and allow, doing so, it says, allow flow and synchronicity into your life. Like just having the intention of opening yourself up and being more open-minded, but also not so rigid with your routine, to sort of like be adaptable when you need to be. Routines can be very helpful in helping us stay productive, but if you get too rigid, then you're losing out on opportunities for synchronicities, or gaining outside opinions that could be really useful to you. With the Moonstone card talking about the moon cycles, this can also just indicate that, in a similar sense to flow, there could be a need to get more in tune with yourself, with your body, with your intuition. Moonstone is a really good or a really good stone, for connecting to your intuition. But it's allowing yourself to, to get into the flow with your cycles instead of resisting them. Like you can't be productive and charge ahead all the time, right? You need to have periods of rest as well. So there's a need to become more attuned to this feeling of cycles and where you are, what you need to, be doing, whatever energy you need to like embrace instead of trying to resist, will help you see a greater amount of progress, as well as like things are going to feel like they're flowing more easily instead of being met with resistance or not seeing that progress. This can also have to do with, what we were talking about with potentially isolating yourself from others, is that there's a time to, stand firm in what you believe in, and there's a time to open yourself up to other people's perspectives. There's a time to spend time alone, and there's a time to be social with others, right? So I'm just getting this energy of needing to open up to become more flexible, whether that is mentally or like literally needing to socialize with others, needing to experience other things, to, you know, like even if like it might not matter what particularly you do outside of your routine, but just breaking your routine can a lot of times offer you a fresh perspective. You don't even necessarily have to get, you know, someone else's opinion. It could just be like taking a break from seeing things in such a narrow view. You need to, you know, be more open. So with that being said, this energy, if it sounds familiar to you, it could be your current energy, or this could also be energy that you are also moving into, of like you might already be trying to find that flow, and to not have such a narrow-minded perspective on your situation. So I think I want to go ahead now and get into some more particulars, get into the tarot. We're going to be taking a look at mind, body, heart, and soul, to sort of check in to see what your current energy is and see if there's anything that, you know, might be needing attention. You might need to make adjustments. Just some whatever insight would be helpful to you at this time, and then we'll finish with some general guidance. I am going to shuffle all of the cards out at once. That way, any of you that don't like watching me shuffle the cards can just skip ahead. I will put a timestamp either in the video or down below. But yeah. Let's start by getting a card to represent your mind, your current mental state. Yep. We have the Hermit and the Ten of Cups. So now let's get a card for your body. What is going on physically at this time? We have the Knight of Wands. What is going on emotionally? Oof, there's a bunch. Let's get a card for what is going on emotionally. We have the Eight of Cups in reverse. Let's get a card for what's going on spiritually, on a spiritual level, the current energy of your soul. We have the Ten of Swords. And let's go ahead and pull a card for general guidance. Any other guidance that would be useful. We have the Emperor, and we also have the Two of Wands. Okay, so to start off with the mind, the Hermit being in reversed is really making me feel like what I had been talking about before, with sort of isolating yourself to an extent that is not helpful, that is, you know, closing you off from other opinions, other sources of knowledge, and information that could be really helpful to you at this time. Like self-reflection and solitude, introspection, all of those things could be really a really positive thing. But when the Hermit comes out in reverse, it's sort of this need to reintegrate. And so since what we were talking about was this need for allowing more flow and opening up. This card also talks about seeing the interconnectedness of things, but being more aware of those things, aware of how diverse opinions can actually be a really positive thing. How should I describe it? It's sort of like, if you're in a debate with someone and two people have differing opinions or conflicting ideas, whatever, a lot of the times, like, the value of debate isn't to try to convince the other person that they're wrong and you're right, or vice versa. What's really valuable about debates is that they allow everyone participating to reflect on their own beliefs and to strengthen them, to see where there are things that they didn't consider. And that's not to say like, oh, I was wrong, you're right. It's allowing you to pinpoint the weak points of your argument and to see, what you could do to strengthen that, how you can address that, or things, think things through that you hadn't considered before. It's not about who's right and wrong. Having a diverse number of opinions can be a really healthy, positive, constructive thing when they're being shared in a healthy, environment. So I think that is what this Hermit in reverse is really referring to, is this need to consider other perspectives, to increase your knowledge instead of feeling like you already know everything. Not to say that like you're to the point of being arrogant about it, but we can sometimes get into that position when we're just like when we're in a really rigid routine or like just habit of like a way of doing things, is that we don't even realize that we're not considering how we might be doing things differently or how we might be able to view things differently. So I think that's the primary aspect of the Hermit showing up in reverse. But as far as the 10 of Cups goes, this is like a really interesting combination to me. For some of you, I feel like this might indicate that there's a desire for this. There's a desire for more interaction with others, for more communication, for more, for the things that I had been talking about. But you may be feeling like you can't have this sort of interaction with others. You can't have this like intellectual exchange because other people don't see your perspective. They don't appreciate where you're coming from, or there could just be, just feeling like cut off from others, and like as if you had no choice in the matter, if that makes sense. For others of you, you might literally just feel like, even though there's like a family here, for some of you, I am getting that maybe you feel more satisfied by yourself, that you feel more confident about like just maintaining your own beliefs and opinions without considering others, because it makes you feel more sure of yourself in some way. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, it's a really interesting combination, and I'm not sure, to be perfectly honest, that I fully understand it. Like I said, for some of you, I do think that there is maybe this desire for a sort of greater interaction with others. Maybe it's that you have a desire to meet like-minded people. But again, that's like, if you're all singing the same note, there's no harmony, right? So there's a need to become less rigid in your thinking. This could actually be why these cards came out together, is that if you stop isolating yourself, or if you stop like being so closed-minded to other people's insights and opinions, that you will actually have this emotional fulfillment, or you will be able to appreciate like the diversity of opinions, and the richness of like your intellectual pursuits, or whatever it is for you. But just that there will be a greater fulfillment, there will be a greater balance and harmony when you realize that different opinions don't have to mean conflict. Different perspectives don't have to mean that you can't get along with others, or you can't appreciate other people's perspectives just because they're different from your own. I don't know. Hopefully I expressed that well. But moving on to body, physical, we have the Knight of Wands in reverse. And this is indicating to me like feeling low energy, feeling burnout, maybe feeling, I would normally say feeling uninspired, but that doesn't, being in the category of body, that it doesn't relate exactly. But if we consider that, all of these aspects of self are all part of a whole, they do affect one another and influence one another. So being low energy, feeling burnout is also going to, prevent you from feeling inspired, right? If you're low energy, it makes sense. But I do feel like this could be very simply a result of being too stuck in a routine, to being too rigid with your routine instead of paying attention to cycles and paying attention to your body and what your needs are. Just trying to force things and move forward just to stick to your schedule or your timeline that you have in mind, instead of having a greater sense of flow, so that when you're like, oh, I'm feeling really tired today, maybe I should cut down on what I'm trying to accomplish and rest, so that you don't get physically burn out. I think that's the primary reason for this. I'm not really seeing too many other ways of interpreting this card, but I will offer just one other possibility in case this resonates with you. For some of you, you could be like over ambitious in, like, whether it's running or like going to the gym, like whatever physical activity you might do for exercise, you could be overdoing it. You may be trying to push yourself, like, to stick to that routine. Like, oh, I said I was going to work out every day, I just got to do it. Like, instead of paying attention to when you need to sleep in, or, whatever, or allow your body to recover from your workouts. Like, side note, I guess, I don't, I was reading one time about how you can go to the gym every day and your muscles are going to get stronger and stronger. But at the same time, if you haven't done it the right way, like if you don't have, maybe a trainer or someone who has like specialized knowledge to know how to work yourself up to that although your muscles can be getting stronger and stronger, you can be wearing down your tendons. And that's where a lot of sports injuries happen. Like, a lot of people will say, I do this all the time, I don't know, all of a sudden, and like they pulled a muscle, or like, it had some sort of, I don't even know what sports injuries are, but clearly not a big gym goer myself. But a lot of times people will say that their sports injuries happen like out of the blue, like it made no sense. They were doing something that they always do. And that's why, is because when you are not giving yourself rest, if you're not working on strengthening your tendons as well as your muscles, you are, it's only a matter of time before they give out. So just random side note for anyone that relates to going to the gym a lot. It's important to become more in tune with your body and what you need. I'm not saying don't work out every day, but if you want to do that, you need to be making sure that you know what you're doing in order to work up to that, so that you're not, going to do something that's going to have an adverse effect on your health. But moving on to heart, the emotional aspect of things, we have the Eight of Cups in reverse. And this is an interesting depiction of the Eight of Cups. All of these cards are very, well, I shouldn't say all of them. Most of them are very non-traditional to me. usually it's a solitary figure walking away from the cups, but this is literally taking the cups with them as a whole happy family. So but what this card usually signifies to me is leaving behind certain aspects or people, things, whatever in your life that you are no longer feeling satisfied with. It is the search for emotional fulfillment. So being in reverse, I feel like that is something that you're not even trying to do. Like that is not your, like maybe you are just so set on this this rigid schedule, and you're like just really trying to maintain that you're not considering your emotional needs. I feel like there's a good possibility that you are not feeling emotionally fulfilled in your life, and that part of that, I would say, has to do with being too rigid. Even if you don't feel like you have like a set routine, there's always going to be habits, just tendencies that we have that we end up falling into because we're, not being spontaneous. We're not allowing out of the ordinary things to occur. We're not putting ourselves in a position to allow synchronistic events to happen. So I do believe that, like, if you open yourself up to getting into more of a flow and to paying attention to your own needs, not even just physical, but emotional as well, that you'll be able to find greater fulfillment. There could be a desire to stick with what is familiar just because it is familiar. There could be some resistance to, even if there are things that you might sense aren't really working for you or aren't really aligned with you anymore, that you're just perhaps afraid to let go of those things. But that's the only way that you can make room for more emotionally fulfilling things to come into your life. So as far as the soul goes, spiritual, we have the 10 of Swords. So, I mean, this is a pretty intense card, as you can probably tell. But what I'm getting is that, like, you've become disconnected from the spiritual aspects of life. Or maybe that was never a priority with you to begin with. And I would just like to say, like, if that's resonating with you, I think it's important to understand that spirituality is not the same thing as religion. It isn't belief in a particular thing. You don't have to believe in God or, you don't have to accept a certain set of beliefs to live spiritually. It's more about being in tune with yourself and having a higher awareness, that transcends your ego, and so that you can really be aligned with your true self, your authentic self, and be motivated in terms of, like, the greater good, and understanding how, we all have a place here on this planet, and that's like the beauty of life. We don't have to be motivated on just our personal endeavors. We don't have to, like, worry about proving ourselves and things like that. Like, these are things that we can easily get caught up into. I feel like I'm getting sidetracked, but my point is, spirituality is a way of being. It's not a specific belief. I also do feel like it is worth mentioning, though, that the 10 of Swords, it represents, like, endings, obviously, but, like, the worst is over. Like, you can't sink lower. And that might sound like pretty bleak. It might sound like a sort of, I'm feeling sort of harsh communicating this reading because it's I'm just reading the cards as they come, but I feel like it's a little harsh. sounding, but it's not meant to. This is not meant to criticize you or make you feel bad. This is just literally things that you can do to improve so that you can feel happier and more fulfilled, so you can enjoy life more. And the only way you can do that is to look at the reality of your situation. And the situation with your soul at this point is one of being able to have a fresh start. In the original, I won't say original, it's not the original, but in the Rider-Waite, which is like the most common version of the tarot, there's a figure with 10 swords stabbed in his back, but on the horizon is a rising sun. So it's like there's this potential for a beautiful new dawn, that's just, like that's what's next. So I feel like the encouragement is to open yourself up to being spiritual, to reconnecting with your needs, and the cycles that you're going through. Like becoming more spiritual doesn't mean that you have to start meditating every single day, right? But it's being able to recognize when you're getting too caught up in your head, or you're getting too caught up in your routines, whatever it is, to just spend some time being present, to spend some time in reflection, and not in the sense of like isolating yourself, but just of finding peace. I feel like The Power of Now might be a good book to help you get into that, because it's not, I don't agree with everything in that book. I think it's weird if you read a book and you do agree with everything in it, right? Because then that's a sign that you're just blindly accepting everything someone else says instead of using your own judgment, which would be like the complete opposite of what you're doing. So I don't think that you're at risk of becoming indoctrinated in any way. But if you would be open to it, like that book, I feel like particularly in the beginning, it sets up like just a useful way of framing how to be present in the moment, how to not get so caught up in your head. Because the majority of the time, we're like either so busy just doing what we're doing, or we're either thinking about the future or the past instead of just like being fully present in the moment. And it's a lot harder than one might think to stop the mental chatter. But yeah, that's just, I don't know. I'm not a super good person to be telling people how to be spiritual, because I'm fairly new to it myself. I feel like I have, I think of tarot and oracle readings as like an aspect of spirituality, especially because I use them as tools for self-reflection and guidance, and helping me connect to my own inner wisdom, as opposed to just like trying to predict the future or whatever. But yeah, I just, if you're not sure where to begin, you might want to read that book, or you can just begin with trying to be more mindful, just trying to pay more attention to the cycles of your body and your, emotions, on whatever level, whichever of these really, whatever your needs are, paying attention to them and becoming more open-minded and curious about, yourself and, how you choose to live your life, right? On another more random note, I don't usually think about this interpretation, but there was one time that I heard someone talk about the 10 of swords possibly representing acupuncture, which is really funny to me. But it could actually be like, acupuncture, I don't necessarily think of as like a spiritual thing to do. It's part of traditional Chinese medicine. But when you have physical blockages, it can affect your spiritual spiritual aspects as well as like obviously like your mental and emotional, right? It affects everything. So you might, if you have not tried acupuncture, maybe give it a try. I enjoy it. But yeah, that's just a random side note for anyone that sounds interesting too. But moving on to further guidance, we have the Emperor, and we also have the Two of Wands. So I'm getting a couple different interpretations from the Emperor. Most of the time, like the Emperor obviously represents authority, a leader. And a lot of the time, I take it on a personal level of understanding your own autonomy, your own power, your personal power, and it being a message to empower yourself, which can definitely apply. You can empower yourself to make these changes so that, like you still have, you still have your own agency, even when you open yourself up to perspectives that are outside of your own, right? But I do think that this could also be representing perspectives outside your own, like a need to consult other sources of information, other authorities of, knowledge or whatever. And this could be in terms of intellectual knowledge, it could be in terms of spiritual knowledge. It could be whatever you're feeling most closed off from other people's perspectives. It could be important. I feel like this card might actually even talk about a mentor, if that makes because knowledge brings wisdom, like allowing yourself to become a student of another in a sense, and this could be a book, this could be literally like a person, or maybe just taking a course of some kind. But I feel like this message is to consult more, more established sources of knowledge. Obviously, don't give your personal power away in the process. It is still important to exercise discernment and use your best judgment in whatever you're doing, this reading included, right? But if you're being overly skeptical of everything other people say and being mistrustful of it, being closed-minded in that sense, then you're really limiting yourself. Because like I said, even when you hear things that you don't agree with, they cause you to reflect on your own beliefs and to make adjustments where it's necessary. But that kind of brings me into the Two of Wands, which I think of as understanding like a greater sense, having a more open-minded perspective on what's possible. I feel like the Three of Wands gets more into the expansion, whereas the Two of Wands is like a little bit more in the planning stages, right? But I feel like it's being able to put yourself in this position to consider how you want to move forward, to consider different ways of broadening your horizons, if that makes sense. So that's what I'm getting for this, is like it's really just a reiteration of what I've been saying before, but like open yourself to other forms of information, of knowledge, of ways of living your life, so that you can broaden your perspective, but also just get just sort of break the routine or the rigid way of like living your life, going through the motions of like habits and tendencies that you're not considering whether they're serving you well. That can also have to do with the Eight of Cups, like not wanting to leave behind those tendencies that we have because it's comfortable and easy, but it's not very emotionally fulfilling. So it could be time to put those things to the side so that you can learn and experience a new way of life, of allowing yourself to be more in flow with different cycles and different perspectives, different, ways of viewing things. So I hope that made sense. I think that's pretty much everything I have. So I just want to go ahead and get a few of these, I call them affirmation lyric cards, but they're not really affirmations. They're just lyrics that are in the first person, and some of them sound like affirmations. So it's just an easier way for me to distinguish. I have 4 of these small decks. But anyway, let's see. Any last messages for group number 3? We have, I live so I love. A good motivating aspect. And then I've been through a lot of changes, but I'm still the same. And I feel like that is really fitting for this. It's important to understand that you changing your opinions, or just like broadening your perspective to consider other people's opinions and beliefs or whatever, that doesn't change who you are. If you identify with your beliefs as a part of your identity, you need to understand that that is ego. That's not who you are on a soul level. It's a misidentification of the self. And so, we definitely can grow. We can change in the sense of development, but who we are on a soul level never changes. So you don't have to be afraid of any of the stuff that we've been talking about. You're not going to lose your sense of who you are. And if you do feel like you are losing your identity in some sense, it's ego-based, and it's something that isn't serving you anymore. It's time to transcend your ego and to see things from a higher perspective. I think I also want to go ahead and get a card from the Guidance and Encouragement deck. This one. It's definitely not coincidence. All right. So if you were feeling like this reading was coincidence, and you were inclined to be a little dismissive of it, it's definitely not coincidence. It could be a sign that you should get more in touch with your intuition, like with this Moonstone card. Tap into like the more spiritual aspects of living, because there's definitely meaning to it. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. I hope that didn't sound too judgmental or critical. I don't know you. I don't know what you're going through in your life. I'm just reading the cards as I see them. And, there's always going to be an extra layer of interpretation that you need to do to see what actually applies and what doesn't, right? You still have to maintain your own sense of authority when, when being in the position of receiving wisdom. I saw wisdom there. I'm not trying to claim that I'm super wise, but I just mean like in communicating information, you still need to be discerning and see what applies to you and what doesn't. And part of that is getting in touch with your intuition so you can be discerning and see how things relate to you, and how, maybe some things, this is a collective reading, so some things might not translate well into your situation. So you need to be discerning in that, but not in a sense of denial. Don't reject something just because it's unpleasant to hear. But yeah, that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any feedback, or if you want to tell me if this did resonate, I would be curious to see how it translates to different people's situations. I'm not asking you to overshare or anything you're uncomfortable with, but just like some feedback is always useful for me to make sure that I'm doing the best job I can possibly do. I'm not afraid of criticism. I think that it is helpful. So with that being said, Thanks again, and I'll see you in my next one.